Welcome back to Reds Fusion LFC, the home of all things Liverpool Football Club. Today we've got a massive update. ARNE SLOT has spoken out honestly about his job security after admitting things haven't been good enough. Plus, Virgil van Dijk shows his true leadership after youngster Amara Nallo's red card. And we dive into the Milos Kerkez chance that got away. Stick around as we break down 5 big talking points that reveal the real message being sent inside Anfield right now. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to stay updated with every twist and turn in the transfer window. ARNE SLOT gives honest take on Liverpool job security after not good enough. Admission Liverpool's horrendous form continued. In the Carabao Cup versus Crystal Palace with a miserable 3-0 defeat to Oliver. Glasner's side and ARNE SLOT has since been forced to face some serious questions. ARNE SLOT believes his job is still safe despite Liverpool's woeful run of form continuing against Crystal Palace. Last season's beaten Carabao Cup finalists extended their rotten against the Eagles at Anfield. A first-half brace from familiar foe Ismaila Sarr had put Palace in total control against a much-changed Liverpool side. Yeremy Pino then rounded off the scoring late on to condemn the Reds to defeat. It represented Liverpool's 6th defeat in their last 7 games. Slot looked far from happy come the final whistle, and despite the pressure being on, the Dutchman does not believe that his job is in any more danger than before. He said, "If you are on a run of results like this, if you play for Liverpool, if you manage Liverpool, the pressure is there. I don't think it has changed much after this loss." While Slot recognizes that there are reasons for Liverpool's downturn in form, he refuses to suggest that such adverse results should be the product of them. He also hit back at suggestions that he should not have changed his team so much for the game versus Palace. Speaking to Sky Sports, the Dutchman said, "People who know this club or who have followed this club know for this competition we use it for younger players. There are multiple reasons we have lost so many games, but with all the reasons still are no excuses. To lose so many, but it hasn't been helpful that all the games we lost there were only 2 days in between the games. We had to play away from home. If we play players, like I tried with Alexander Isak, players who missed preseason, we run the risk of another injury, and at the moment we only have 15, 16 senior players available. It is always a blow to lose a game of football, especially if it leads to going out of a competition. But it is the same selection I did last season in rounds like this. There are many reasons we lost 5 out of 6, or 6 out of 7. None of them are good enough to accept losing so many." Slot also believes that Liverpool's packed schedule has contributed to their woeful current form. He added, "If I look at our performance against Brentford, if I use that as an example 2 days after we played Frankfurt away, I saw a team that struggled to play 3 games in 7 days. Again, not an excuse, but to lose that game of football is not a complete surprise if I see the player struggles some players had in pre-season, players that came from different leagues. It's a new challenge for them to play at Premier League and Champions League level 3 games in 7 days. Liverpool are back in action this weekend as they welcome Aston Villa to Anfield. As it stands, Slot's side sits 7th in the Premier League and already 7 points behind current leaders Arsenal. Following their clash with Villa, Liverpool are then back in Champions League action as they take on Spanish giants Real Madrid. What ARNE SLOT did followed flawed Brendan Rodgers' plan. A clear Liverpool message has been sent. Liverpool, verdict from Anfield as ARNE SLOT's side crash out of the Carabao Cup with 3-0 loss to Crystal Palace. If anyone was wondering how much ARNE SLOT was feeling the heat during the worst run of his Liverpool tenure, they were given their answer when the team news dropped at 6:30 p.m. It would have been easy for an embattled manager, knee-deep in the mire after 5 defeats in 6, to have picked a slew of his big guns for this 4th-round tie against Crystal Palace. Instead, Slot selected the exact sort of team that the Liverpool boss would reasonably be expected to at this stage of a competition that, plainly, sits bottom in the list of priorities. The message, despite the month from hell, was crystal clear. There's no panic here. It was bold, it was brave, and while it was not quite Brendan Rodgers controversially resting the major stars at Real Madrid in effort to secure a Premier League win later that week against Chelsea, with Liverpool entertaining Aston Villa next, there were at least some similarities to November 2014. Rodgers' Reds lost both of those back then, And while the Northern Irishman eventually lasted another 11 months in the job, it was the beginning of the end in the eyes of many at the time. Things are not quite as grave for defending Premier League champion Slot presently, but there was no doubt that he was willing to all but concede a place in the 5th round of the League Cup if it means that his stuttering seniors get their campaign back on track on Saturday night. A 3-0 loss here might be collateral damage if the champions are able to shrug off a dreadful run later this week. This was not quite a waving of the white flag, but it was at least a gentle, brief wafting of it. The 9-man substitutes bench, for example, contained 0 first-team players, and only one of them had ever started a senior fixture, which was Kaidi Gordon nearly 4 years ago. Slot hinted, pre-match, that the inability to get his players on the training pitch for a full week, owing to the congested fixture list, has meant they have been unable to properly work on eradicating the issues that have blighted them all season virtually. And while the likes of Milos Kerkez, Andy Robertson, and Alexis McAllister did start this game, Slot will at least now have his key men available to him for the remainder of the week as they plot away past Villa. There will be no Thursday recovery day for Mohamed Salah, Virgil van Dijk and co. They have to make that count. But having opted against fielding a stronger side against Oliver Glasner's Eagles, victory against Villa is now even more important than previously after this ultimately comfortable triumph for the FA Cup holders. A Liverpool team containing Kieran Morrison, Calvin Ramsey, and Trey Neone made a bright enough start, but they were unable to get any real help for lone frontman Federico Chiesa, with Wataru Endo selected to sit in deep and essentially become a third center-back, which had a knock-on effect in an attacking sense. Chiesa lashed a decent chance over the bar, and Rio Ngumoha caused a handful of problems. But an unfamiliar and inexperienced lineup were undone by the class of Ismaila Sarr, whose first-half double took him up to 7 in his last 9 appearances against Liverpool. The Senegal frontman has been the scourge of the Reds for years now, and when the Palace fans began a chant that asked if they could play Liverpool every week, Sarr likely joined in quietly. After acquitting themselves quite well, a poor piece of defending from Joe Gomez allowed Sarr to strike home inside the area with his left foot after 41 minutes. The ex-Watford striker then linked up nicely with Yeremy Pino for his second on the cusp of half-time. It was a harsh, brutal exposure of a patched-up side by a team who were carrying many of their first team. Pino, another established Palace star, took the away side's third with confidence, cutting inside and finding the far corner late on past debutant goalkeeper Freddie. Woodman Liverpool failed to trouble stand-in goalkeeper Walter Benitez in the second half with Glasner's first choice. Pairing of Marc Guéhi and Maxence Lacroix keeping the Reds at bay, despite the efforts of Chiesa, who stuck to the task gamely. It might not have been a celebrated night for the Italian, but his work rate alone should give Slot food for thought in the coming weeks. Liverpool's exit from the competition shouldn't necessarily have a detrimental impact on his minutes. The introduction of academy center-backs, Amara Nallo, who was sent off just 12 minutes later, and Welity Lucky, for McAllister and captain Andy Robertson with a little under 25 to play spoke volumes. Even for a head coach who might have had a desire to go one better than last season's Wembley showpiece defeat to Newcastle, there are clearly bigger fish to fry. That, though, simply has to start on Saturday, and if the team sheet here was proof that Slot isn't panicking yet, he has to show why to the wider audience now. The rot has to stop somewhere soon. Virgil van Dijk showed his true colors after Liverpool youngster Amara Nallo's red card. Virgil van Dijk was not a part of the matchday squad as Liverpool lost to Crystal Palace in the League Cup, but he was present at Anfield to watch the defeat unfold Liverpool. Captain Virgil van Dijk was quick to console centre-back Amara Nallo after the youngster was sent off against Crystal Palace in the Carabao Cup. Nallo came on in the second, half against Oliver Glasner's side, but was shown his marching. Orders for bringing down Justin Devaney when the Northern Ireland midfielder was racing through on goal. Ismaila Sarr had already scored twice for Crystal Palace before Spanish winger Yeremy Pino added a third late on. Brought on when Liverpool was already heading out, Nallo was given a red card for the second game in a row. He has played twice for the Reds at senior level, failing to stay on in either. Earlier in the year, Nallo was sent off for a similar offense against PSV in the Champions League, that time after only 4 minutes. On both occasions, he didn't need to make a tackle but made an error and subsequently panicked. Nallo trudged off the field after leaving referee Craig Pawson with no choice. Van Dijk, who was watching on from behind the bench, followed him down the tunnel. What a horrible feeling for the youngster. Former Liverpool defender Stephen Warnock said while commentating on the game for BBC Radio 5 Live, "There is nothing worse than knowing you have been sent off on your debut. Then there is the next game. You make an error and it leads to another sending off. I have just seen Virgil van Dijk walk down the tunnel. You have to try to pick the youngster up." Nallo has impressed at youth level for Liverpool, but is yet to translate that form into his senior appearances. He could get another chance in the early rounds of the FA Cup early in the new year. Defending his team selection, ARNE SLOT also said that the injuries played a part in his team looking weaker than normal, as well as an inexperienced starting at Nantes. He didn't have any senior stars among the subs. Nallo has impressed at youth level for Liverpool, but is yet to translate that form into his senior appearances. He could get another chance in the early rounds of the FA Cup early in the new year. Defending his team selection, ARNE SLOT also said that the injuries played a part in his team looking weaker than normal, as well as an inexperienced starting XT. He didn't have any senior stars among the subs. That is a bit of an insight. Chelsea can bring Estevao in. After I made 2 substitutions tonight, we had 6 teenagers. Slot did reveal, though, that his side could be bolstered by the return of at least one senior player from injury at the weekend. Ryan Gravenberch has a good chance of being back for the weekend. The Dutchman confirmed post-match. The other ones, let's wait and see. ARNE SLOT faces new Liverpool question as Milos Kerkez chance missed. 5 talking points. A much-changed Liverpool team lost at home to Crystal Palace in the League Cup 4th round. This is what we spotted as Ismaila Sarr proved a familiar thorn in the side. Anfield, Liverpool, ARNE SLOT named a much-changed starting offense and subs bench for his side's clash with Crystal Palace in the League Cup, and Liverpool crashed out with Ismaila Sarr's incredible run of form against the Reds continuing. Sarr had netted 2 goals before halftime at Anfield, taking his tally to 7 in 9 appearances for both of his English clubs, Watford and Crystal Palace. From there, Oliver Glasner's men were the only likely winners. Alexis Mac Allister got some useful minutes under his belt, and Calvin Ramsey showed some decent signs, but Slot's men were knocked out with Yeremy Pino adding a late third. Here are the 5 things Liverpool spotted as the game unfolded. Federico Chiesa. A lone wolf for many fans, Federico Chiesa has been treated harshly by ARNE SLOT during his Liverpool career to date. The Italian has barely had a kick since arriving from Juventus in the summer of 2024. Given scraps rather than sustained opportunities, Chiesa might argue that this match was a continuation of those bits and pieces he has been thrown throughout his time at Anfield. A lot was being asked of him here. Chiesa was doing a lot of running, but the attacks that Liverpool mustered tended to be one-man efforts, whether that was the 27-year-old Rio Ngumoha or someone else. He was isolated and didn't have much in the way of chances to show what he can do. Young stars struggled to make an impact. Starring in the UEFA Youth League for Liverpool last midweek, Kieran Morrison was given a chance to play at senior level for the first time here. In the game, however, he didn't leave much of a mark. Morrison was unable to get the better of the Crystal Palace left wing-back Borna Sosa, and he was pushed off the ball a few times when he got into some promising positions. Gumoha and Trey Nioni are more familiar names for Liverpool fans, but they will have relished the chance to play. Neither stood out, though. Gumoha started well, but he was unable to force his magical dribbling to result in a goal. Nioni was largely anonymous. Milos Kerkez chance missed. Milos Kerkez has struggled at times in the early part of his Liverpool career, but there is a player there. The Hungarian, after all, cost 54 million, 40 million for a reason. Against Crystal Palace, there was a chance for him to really lay down a marker, but he didn't take it at all. At Bournemouth, Kerkez was all action and known for driving forward with purpose. Given more license to attack here as a wing-back, it didn't end up being a night where he made that much of an impact. The left-back selection against Aston Villa on Saturday will be an interesting one. Robertson going off and Kerkez staying on until the end suggests he might have won that race. Formation switch. Something had to change for Liverpool after a run of poor results, and it was Wataru Endo who dropped in to play on the right of a back three here, leaving Trey Nyoni and Alexis Mac Allister as a midfield double pivot. Giving some extra defensive security and matching up with the system that Oliver Glasner uses, it perhaps shouldn't have been a huge surprise. The question now is whether it will be used again. Can Liverpool afford to move to that way of playing full-time? With only 3 senior center-backs, it seems unlikely. Slot would also have to sacrifice one of his usual midfielders with both Dominic Szoboszlai and Curtis Jones, when fit, playing well. For a short time here, it worked. Then Sarr put the afterburners on, and it all fell apart pretty quickly. Slot asked a new question by playing a different system, but perhaps saw the answer too. Changes failed to pay off. Tonight's fixture gives us an opportunity to take a step forward, not just in this competition but also in our season as a whole, Slot wrote in the official matchday program. The team that he selected hinted that this competition was not a major priority for the Reds, though the bench, for instance, was completely lacking senior experience, so the result shouldn't have been a complete surprise. Liverpool losing 3-0 at home is never a good look. Doing so in this manner and in the middle of a dire run won't help. Considering the fact that Liverpool hasn't been in good form lately and perhaps could have gone a long way in this competition, it was a risk to play a team that was quite so heavily rotated, even if there are 6 senior options currently sidelined with injuries. It didn't pay off, but the true test will be the end result on Saturday against Aston Villa. A win, as it has been for a while now, is a must.